Good morning, Joyce.
Good morning,
I have a story for you.
Anne. Okay, I love a story.
Okay, so I had a video conference with my doctor the other day because something was wrong. Like my energy felt wrong, something felt very wrong. And when I get like that, I actually think I'm dying. And so he ordered a bunch of blood work for me. And as I was walking to get the blood work, I realized, oh, I'm moving. This is what the last time I moved, when I moved from, actually, when I moved from Boston to here, I was at the doctor's right before saying something is wrong. And when I moved from Sebastopol, I thought something was so wrong, I had a CT scan. And this, I got the blood results and nothing's wrong. But I don't even know that I'm panicking about leaving when I'm leaving. And so I wrote on Instagram, I wrote something, and a mother responded. And I wrote, my sense of self began to vigorously crumble when I first tried to leave home for college. I ended up returning in countless ways until my parents died. I did not know how to separate in a manner that felt safe and loving. I could leave, but the cord felt short, so I always returned. And a mother wrote to me, and I'm going to change any facts that would make her, people could know who it was. But her son is 12 years old, and any kind of change sends him off the rails. And it's very hard for her to negotiate how to have him feel safe in the face of change. And whether it's moving or like your mom would change your furniture, right? Do you have anything to say about this?
A lot. One of the early things that I used to talk to adoptive parents about was transitions. And I mean, with anything, and people would say everybody has problems with transitions, everybody has problems with change. But I think the deeper, more ingrained issue of change for the adoptee impacts us in a different way. And I think it takes a lot of preparation. And it doesn't, the same thing you would do for a 3-year-old going off to preschool for the first time, you would do for someone going off to college. But I mean, not in an insulting way, treating them like a child, but realizing that they were not involved or understanding of major shifts in their life. They may have been sleeping. I have one adoptee that had horrible sleeping problems. And when we got back to the adoption agency notes, which we acquired, and read them, she was sound asleep when she was taken from her birth mother's arms and put in her adoptive parents' arms. And then the adoptive parents reported that when they got home, she slept for 16 hours. And they kept going and putting mirrors to see if she was breathing. I mean, they were freaked out new parents. But this was this child's way of checking out because something earth shaking was happening. And also, there's a fear that major life changes can happen when you're not looking. So and even though at college you selected the college, you went and visited, you're going where you're going, it doesn't change the feeling. And for
Mhm.
many adoptees, going to college is the first time they're really leaving home. I mean, maybe they went to sleepover camp and maybe they stayed at their aunt's house in Ohio for the summer. And those were transitions that probably had reactions as well. But going away to college is more final, even though it isn't. I mean, especially these days, people come home and I always say the more money you pay, the less you go because there are like major breaks every so the first year kids come home quite often and then after that they use their time going to friends' places or traveling. But I think for adoptees, that's different. There's a different feeling about leaving. And will you still be yourself when you get to where you're going? Because the first place you left, you were not yourself when you arrived.
Mm,
Name, maybe a new language, maybe a new country, people that didn't look like you, maybe slightly because you were an in-race adoption, or dramatically if you were a transracial adoption. These were big things that happened. And, people poo-poo that and say, "Oh, yeah, well, that's just what it is." But it's huge. It's huge. And I think every time you go through that kind of change, you wonder who you're going to be at the other end. And sometimes you're doing it to be someone else at the other end. You wrote and talked about going back to your family home to to assist your father. And I love Ram Dass and Mirabai's book, Walking Each Other Home. And you went with the express purpose of walking your dad home.
mm,
And so you had a reason to go. And you also, for good or for bad, some days, went back to who you were then and saw yourself in a different light and saw the juxtaposition of who you were and who you are and who you're becoming. And I think that we all do that, not with as much reflection, because you're a writer, and the other thing that you're doing while you're doing that is reflecting on it because you're trying to make sense of it. Not everyone's mind works that way, and so they may not have the advantage of realizing that they're reflecting. But yeah, I think those moves are incredibly huge to adoptees. And the ones you don't choose, like I work with adoptees who, I just finished working with an adult adoptee whose kids are adults. And when they were little, her husband got a huge, fabulous job, and it just put them in a whole different income bracket. They were able to do amazing things for their kids and to live a life that was really quite wonderful. But it wasn't her choice.
mm,
And it was clear, because she was a good adoptee, that this was the right thing to do. It stripped her of the career she was in and what she was doing. It shifted her life dramatically for very good reason. And she was conscious of the choice that she was making, but in some ways she didn't see it as a choice.
mm.
She saw it as necessary. And now she's at a point where she has a little bit of resentment, and she doesn't care as much about the money and the status, and she would prefer to feel whole.
Mm.
And so I think and not that anyone might not feel that, but I think for an adoptee, there are layers added onto it because of what you started with and without.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And what you said about what were your words about your leave when you leave, you're becoming someone else. What did you say? So when you leave for college, you're going to become.
When you leave for your first leaving of your birth mother to go to
Mm,
your adopting parents, or to go to your foster parents or your orphanage or wherever, all those changes, which are pre-verbal and precognitive in some ways, are totally change. I mean,
mm,
yourself is changed. You're not the same person. You don't have the same surroundings and container. You may be around different languages, different cultures. You don't look like the people you're with. That is like so different. Your name has changed. And when you go off to college, the upside of that is you want to recreate yourself, and you sort of want to be someone different. You want to show a different person than the person you were. You feel mature in some ways, and you're trying to put yourself together in a different way. Um, but it's harder if you don't have a solid, true self to be changing from.
mhm,
And for the adoptee, you don't
mhm.
have that.
Yeah, I think that was it. When I think about how things, if my parents had known, if I had known what it's like to have an adoptee nervous system and brain, that when I left for college and when I got there, in college, I was no longer the center of my mom's world. And so I was always safe because I was the child of Marjorie and Frank Heffron. However much I fought against it, it still was my container. So I
Mhm.
loved it and hated it in almost equal measure, I think. But when I got to college and, for example, gained the freshman 15, I'm changing in a way that feels out of control and really terrifying because if I don't know who I am, changing is even more terrifying. For example, I was thinking of majoring in religion, but nobody in my family majored in religion. And just taking that step was too much. It sounds like it would be a period of discovery, but walking into a black room by yourself, it doesn't feel like discovery. It feels like death.
Mhm.
And I think this move now, I'm 60, and for months, I've been agonizing over what to do with my furniture and all my things here because I'm not sure I'm going to come back to California for a while, and putting things in storage is very expensive. But I have this deep distress over how do I get rid of my stuff. And what I'm seeing is that I I never learned the tools two tools. One is to get rid of all my stuff so I could leave with freedom so I could reinvent myself. But another is to keep my stuff in storage so that I have a home to come back to. And for some reason, it feels like all or nothing, right? Like either I have to lose everything to leave and invent myself, or there's expense and like lack of freedom. If,
No, let me see if I can find, oh God, I don't know if I can find this.
mm,
I don't know how to do it while we're recording, but I wrote something in like 1989 and I found it the other day. And in it, I talk, I like it because it's fluffy, but
mm,
it's very real. And I talk about, they're not really the core issues, but they're a bunch of issues. And one of them, of course, is loss. And I talk about how there's two polarized kinds of adoptees, and then a lot of in the middle. And one of them is the adoptee who can't lose anything and
mm,
who has to buy five sweaters that are alike if they like a sweater, because what if they lose it? At least they'll have four others to go back to. And the drama of losing some little tiny thing that really doesn't matter because it reflects on the huger losses of people in your life. And so there are people who not necessarily hoarders, but who do collect things in a certain way. And then there are the adoptees who clean sweep and don't keep anything, and who just leave everything behind and move on empty-handed. And neither of those are necessarily the best
mm,
because you're not understanding what you're doing and making choices. One of the things it said also, this was about myself. When I used to go, I traveled a lot to adoption conferences. I did a lot of keynotes and a lot of things of that sort. And whenever I stay in a hotel, I move the furniture around and I always bring a couple of things from home in my suitcase. I have like little things, little tchotchkes or a picture or something. And it's very weird that I make it, it's not a Stark hotel. I didn't like the desk where it was. So I moved it so I could look out the window while I was doing something on my computer. Um, so there's a way that adoptees change things and incorporate things. And I think that's what you're talking about. And no, you can't just put everything in storage and pay $500 a month for a non-place, but you could pack up things you really care about and discover them later, put them in some friend's basement or put them, oh, you don't have basements in California, or put them somewhere and get them later or ship them to yourself when you get settled in your new space. Not a lot of things, but some things that you really have collected and you care about. So I think there's a way to balance it so you don't want to lose everything about you, uh, and give that all up. It's
I
like
think that's a great I think that's the thing that I am supposed to learn this time. It's a curated leaving. It's a becoming an adult leaving where you leave the childish things behind, and that might be your parents or things, and so that there is some pain, right? Like the I think part of it is just learning to tolerate the discomfort and not just trying to rip the band-aid off and just say, okay, well, screw it, I'll just leave everything, or the opposite. But the ability to tolerate the feeling of leaving, to really grieve. I am not going to be that person living in that house anymore. And I imagine you going into a hotel room, it reminds me of a body waking up and seeing brand new parents. Like you're in a hotel room and you open your eyes and there's nothing that mirrors you. And so how can your body relax when there's nothing for you to hold on to? So a picture would be so grounding because it's, oh, there I am.
the other thing, I was thinking about this a lot during the fires in LA. And there were people who knew the fires were coming and they had a limited amount of time to grab some things. And how some people were used to fires and earthquakes coming their way and had go bags. When what a lot of doctors suggest when you're going to have your baby is to have your go bag ready. So you have everything right there, and when your water breaks, you just go. And these people in parts of the world that are being bombed, what are the things you want to grab and have with you when you're getting ready to leave? You're always going to miss some of the things that you didn't get to bring, but if you have something, what I feel like it's one of the wonderful things about modern technology is you can have all your photographs on the cloud, and your computer could be burned and your house could be burned, but you could still access those photographs. How wonderful that you
Mm,
keep some of your history, or you
mm.
keep some of your writing because it would be. But what are the other things? And there aren't that many when you come down to it. You want your animals, you want a couple of tchotchkes that
Mm.
are memorable to you, something your grandmother gave you, a necklace. They're not even anything necessarily valuable, but they're valuable to you.
Oh, I love that idea. And you know what? I think this would have helped me in college, and I think I'm going to do it now. But this idea of a go bag, I think is brilliant. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a giant circle, which is like a womb, and I'm going to write in it, like, this is the universe of Anne. And it's all the things that I want to take from California with me. And so it could be memories, right? But it could also be the physical things, and to understand that it doesn't, these things are inside of me. Like even being separated from my birth mother, she's still inside of me. I just forget that. Like she can't leave me because she's in me, but I forget because I make the separation so final. But I
You know,
love this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also think of so many of the foster kids that I used to work with,
Mm,
and it used to upset me. And
garbage bag.
the garbage bag thing, but the thing was, these kids would be moved at 3 o'clock in the afternoon directly from school to their new place. And
Mm,
someone would have gone to their house and grabbed a few things and thrown them in a garbage bag. And you know, they weren't the right things. I had
Mm.
one little boy who had stones he had collected at the beach with his auntie, and he put them on the windowsill, and they were magic. They allowed him to communicate with her, and nobody noticed the stones and put them in the bag. And there was no way for him to go back. That place had been cleaned, and who cares about stones? They were thrown out.
And so why stay alive? Do you know what I mean? Like why bother to go to the beach and collect stones if your life isn't going to be respected? That's wow. I love this idea. What you just said also of the right things. I think for an adoptee also just to have it's almost like on the refrigerator when you have your medical history. It's like these are the things, these are my right things. Like if I had to leave right away, these are the things I would take with me just as a grounding and empowering thing. Yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
gonna pack a go bag.
Go bags.
Yeah, I love that. This is, yeah, thanks, Joyce. This is, do you have anything else you want to say? This feels,
I think that's good. I think we
yeah,
we did a good thing.
yeah, I think so too. This felt good. Thank you. Okay, I figure out how to stop the recording.
Talk to you next.